our 11th anniversary live stream right here on twitch.tv/LOTROstream, youtube.com/Lord of the Rings/live, and facebook.com/LOTRO. With me here is Tybur. How you doing, Tybur?
I'm good.
Let's see. I seem to recall when you were here last year, we talked QA.
We did. We talked QA and we talked preview board stuff.
However, you have a new position.
I do have a new position.
You
I
are
am now one of the systems developers. I switched over just about a month ago from QA to systems design.
All right.
I'm still getting my feet nice and wet.
So, what in general would you say you're going to be working on?
That is a great question. Right now, I'm working on class balance pass for 2 of our classes. Out of the 10, we have plenty of classes. And also on general early through middle level range balance and story flow. As we try and update earlier parts of the world and make everything fit nicer into our version of Middle Earth, our view of Middle Earth. We go back and we look at the things that were built in 2007 and you go, but we could make them a little bit better. And I know we've done passes on places like Evendom, and we did a Moria pass. And so we have some people looking through some of the even earlier zones to try and update.
So, as someone who has been working in QA for quite
7
a few
years.
7 years, right? You get pretty familiar with, in the same way that I often do with community, you see the bugs. You see a lot of the kind of player communication to us about what they would like to have us fix and all that sort of thing. And so I imagine that's going to help a little bit as you move into your systems work to say, I remember back when last time I was hearing people talk about the warden or whatever, here's kind of what their opinions are on this sort of thing. So.
I actually have a whole list of favorite annoying bugs and suggestions from players about various things that I would like to incorporate into some of the things I implement. Like some of the cosmetic pet suggestions are on my list of things. I'm like, yeah, we should totally make one of those. And some of our annoying class bugs are on my list of, someday I would like to look at this when I actually know better what I'm doing. But yes, it's very true that having worked with the community for a really long time, in some ways I have a better sense of what things are super annoying to players and have been for a long period of time, years, or what things get players really excited to see. Doesn't mean we can always do it, but it's still nice to have that.
Absolutely. So can you talk a little bit about this classwork that's going on? That's one of our bigger projects, really, and certainly on the systems team.
It's the whole systems team has been diverted for quite some time now, trying to look at where some of the classes are not well balanced in terms of how much damage they can do or how much healing they can do, and also in terms of, well, can they actually play a role in a group very well, or are they kind of on the outskirts and not invited to be in raids and things like that, and the power of various buffs and debuffs, and also we have 3 trait trees for each class, which means there's an enormous variety of things, but sometimes those don't feel very distinct, and sometimes some of those trait trees don't get used much. So we're just trying to rebalance a lot of those things to make the classes feel like they are not as widely varying in power, and also to make it so that some things that wouldn't necessarily have been used today will be more appealing to be like, yeah, actually, I do kind of want to stake the yellow trait tree for this thing. Or
we've said that rather than say a top to bottom full class rebalance, we're focusing a little bit more on multiple classes at once, so that we can kind of get, I sort of like to picture it as a cloud. We want everyone to be in the same cloud and then kind of get people in the same position there. I think it's safe to say, though, that a lot of this, particularly first phase of classwork that we're doing, is going to focus on the trait trees specifically.
Some of it does. It's kind of so as a group, we've holistically looked at how much damage does each class do, how much damage do various skills do, how how much overpowered is a certain rotation versus another rotation, and can we kind of make it feel like all of the classes can contribute to not exactly equal, but to the point where anybody is welcome in a group. And that holistic approach has to be for every class at once, where we say like, this class can do 40,000 damage with one skill and this other class can only do 12. We should look at that.
For the most part, we're targeting trying to raise up the lower classes, but I think as part of this process, we may have a few balanced things that we're going to have to pull back on a few things here.
And especially for some bits of healing, we're going to have to pull some of that back a little bit. If you're healing a character in 1 or 2 heals all the way up to full, that's probably it's not fun to play, and it's not a good design. So some of the healing may have to be reduced or spread between other skills so that at least your rotation is more interesting and more complex. And there are some classes that have a few skills that just do too much damage, and we want to level that somewhat.
Yeah. And some of that has always been wrapped into content, too. Maybe the specific raid that people are playing heavily right now caters to a certain trait spec or something like that. And that's always difficult to try to find balance on. So we are looking more at more holistic than specifically in a piece of content.
Yeah, if a particular raid means that, this particular buff or debuff is really powerful in this raid, so everybody wants to have a burglar in that particular raid, that's okay as long as it's not every instance in our game. It's actually great for our grouping systems if, a certain raid really wants a lore master, and a different raid really wants a burglar, and a different raid really wants a captain. That means that all classes are valued, and you just become a specialist, particularly for some instances, or you pick a certain spec for that instance because this is super useful against this particular boss. But the holistic thing is more like on landscape in all instances. Can I even kill things in a reasonable amount of time on landscape?
Yeah. I really like M.A. Working's question here, which is when we're looking at this class balance, are we looking at all levels of gameplay or are we focusing on the end game?
So we are focusing on the level cap, level 115, but we are looking at snapshots of level 15, level 30, level 50. We can't look at every single level and balance for every single area and every single monster. That would just be unrealistic. But we aren't ignoring the lower levels, but we need to start with balancing at the top and then figure out where that breaks things lower down. So we are touching progressions across all levels.
Yeah.
But it may very well be when we're done and it goes live or to Bullroar that people might say, level 40 is now super impossible. Or they might say, no, level 40 is super easy. It's ridiculous. Right. And we'll have to adjust things.
Well, that's actually a really good point, is that you and the rest of the systems team are doing a lot of work on classes, and this is even before it gets to Bullroar, and presumably a whole nother batch of work is going to be done based on that feedback and things like that.
And we have gotten a lot of very useful feedback from our private preview server, Palantir, and they've looked at some of the early work, and we're still iterating on that. It's still going out like at least once a week. Here's some more things. We changed these. We put these back the way they were because you didn't like them, and we did this, that, and the other tweak, and those are still very much ongoing, and nothing is in a finished state, not even finished enough to go to Bullroar. But we are looking forward to sending it to Bullroar and getting...
Relatively near future, because the start of this is going to come out with 22.2.
Yes, so
so that's fairly soon. Yeah.
Next month we expect Bullroar to get some of these class changes.
Yeah. We've been getting some questions that I'm a little hesitant to get into, which is, here's my specific class trait tree. What are you going to do with it? So, but can you say in general what are we looking at right now?
I can, but I would say if you have specific ideas, problems, suggestions, if it's a problem, if something just isn't working, please do file a bug report. The QA and the designers get a chance to look at those, but also if it's a suggestion or a general gameplay problem with a class, please do feel free to put it on our class forums. We do actually read through those. We do look at what players are saying about their classes. We take it with a grain of salt, because if you say, my class needs to do 100k damage on every hit, we're not going to let you. But we do definitely read those and take that into account. For the broader question of where we're approaching things, we're actually looking at each class one at a time going, what's the role of this class? Can they fill that role? Does it feel fun? And from that broader perspective, we can approach each class individually. But what that means is that for some classes, we just need minor tweaks. For some classes, it's like, well, they don't do enough damage. We need to up their damage, but they do fine as a tank. Yeah. And we just need to readjust things slightly. For other classes, it might be, they end up spamming this one skill an awful lot. Maybe that isn't really a lot of fun. We need to adjust those things. And for other classes, it's, well, 2 of their trait trees aren't even used. Nobody wants to use those.
Yeah, right.
And so we do need to adjust traits around and put different things on different traits. So it's a very much class by class what things we're touching.
There's a part of me that feels like it's a near impossible task, what we're asking you guys to do here.
Oh, yes.
How do you balance, because you do want to deal with, say, like, hey, my class just can't dish out enough damage, but at the same time you have, say, a defensive trait tree, and how should the defensive trait tree on one class compare to one for another class? Everyone wants to be able to succeed, but at some point you have to make a kind of decision saying, okay, the hunters are going to be good at this maybe, and wardens are going to be good at this, but if wardens want to really go for it, can they be as good as this other class and all that kind of thing?
Right.
How do you even begin to approach this stuff?
We really are trying to... So when these classes were designed, they had like a core idea behind them. So the warden, for example, was meant to be a really high skill. If you don't practice your rotations, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be very effective. But if you do and you are, then you should be the best tank in the game. If you have the skill to be doing the right thing at exactly the right time, then you should be the best tank in the game. And the Guardian was designed as, I can take all the hits. I can totally be the tank. I don't have to be perfect all the time, but I can take all the hits. And we want to maintain that kind of feel of the class. The classes have different balances there. Some classes have changed quite a bit over time. I know the poor champions. They used to have a shield. They used to be a sort of viable tank. They no longer have a shield. They haven't had it for years. They are not a super viable tank right now. I don't know that our changes are going to make them a super viable tank, but they should at least make them a much more viable DPS class, which is kind of where they ended up at the end of the last set of class changes was, hey, this is the melee slash through everything, kill everything very quickly AoE class. That's what it's kind of their theme. Yeah. So we want to make sure that if a class has a theme, we don't kill that. We don't take that away. That still feels good. And we are trying to improve their other roles and make that more fun and more balanced. But we want to stay with, hey, what's the most important thing for this class? Let's make it feel right.
Absolutely.
So don't break what works and what's really important to them.
And it's important to sort of realize that this is going to take a while.
It's going to take a while. We're going to do these changes. They're going to go to Bull Roar. We're going to get lots of feedback. We're going to act on it. It's going to go to live. There's going to be lots of feedback. There's going to be, oh my God, this terrible bug. We're going to act on that as well. It's not a one-stop shop. It's also true that we have 10 classes. Yeah. We can't spend the same amount of time on every class all at once. There aren't enough of us, and there's too much work to do. So there might be some classes that got a little tweak now, and they'll get more work later as we see how things settle out.
All right. No, you are going to get it all done. Right? Perfect. 100%
Tonight,
of the time.
I'm staying up all night. Yes.
It's going to go to Bull Roar, and every single player of the game is going to be like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Just don't change a thing.
And it's also true that while between all of the systems designers, we do play 7 out of the 10 classes with a little skill. Yeah. None of us play any of the classes with the high-level raider skill. Yeah. And when you have that, you really have to depend on really excellent players who really know what they're doing to give you better feedback on.
And that's not to say that the devs are bad at the game. That's just to say that it's really always a challenge to be able to develop the game and play with enough as your most hardcore players are, because they can devote the time that oftentimes you just don't have to do this kind of thing.
I've been playing LOTRO for 9 years. Yeah. And I never was a top-end raider. I love the game. I'm pretty good at landscape. I can do a 6-person group, no problem. I'm not a top end raider. I can't heal a whole raid. I just can't.
Yeah.
Because I am not as skilled as somebody who has the Twitch reactions and has invested so much time into their character. Whereas I was more broad. I'm like, well, I'm going to play this class and that class and do a lot of landscape and story quests. And I'm just not as skilled as some of our top players. And that's not surprising.
So related to your former position where you did a lot of work on Bull Roar and Palantir and things like that, who should they be talking to now related to these things?
So I was Tybur on Palantir and Tybur and Loft on Bull Roar. And I am still paying attention. Like, we're still reading all those Palantir forums with feedback about the classes. For the current time being, the QA job of dealing with our preview servers, Palantir and Bull Roar, is actually split between my former boss and somebody who came in to replace me. And we're hoping that as we might get another QA person, we can kind of shift responsibility so that people are doing the thing that they feel best capable to do and like to do. Some people are much more shy. They don't want to talk on the forums very much or answer questions. They have a hard time interacting like quickly. And other people are quite happy to do it. So it's more fitting people to what they're comfortable with.
Ajaza says, don't nerf my easy mode hunter.
The hunter blue line is the class around which we said, hey, the hunter blue line works now. It's pretty good. Might be a little too good at a few things, but it pretty much works now. Let's make sure that things work about as well as this for other classes. So I don't think we've nerfed your blue line easy mode hunter.
Yeah.
But you'll have to see. Please join us on Bull Roar and find out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Happy 11th anniversary.
Yes, happy 11th anniversary, everyone.
All right. I am going to do another giveaway here, and I want to thank everyone in chat for being well behaved, and for those